Let's get more now on our top story tonight, which is the cleanup of Ogoniland. Joining us now is environmental activist Desmond Majokodumi, who's here to discuss the beginning of the cleanup. You're welcome to the news at 10.
Thank you.
Well, you've been very passionate about the environment, and I think that, you know, this cleanup must have really caught your attention. You've watched it closely, and finally it's happening. So according to the UNEP reports, this pollution has gone on for about 50 years. We're just getting to begin the cleanup. Is it better now, better late than never?
For some areas and for some of the victims, it's too late because you can't bring a dead child back to life. And I home in on the children aspect of it because out of that UNEP report that you were talking about, one of the most salient points was the fact that a particular area in Eleme local government of Ogoniland was polluted by 900 times above the safety level of benzene. And benzene is a known carcinogenic and it causes leukemia. Leukemia affects children. So what has actually happened over the years is a very subtle sort of infanticide, a kind of genocide against the children of that area. Because if you're exposed to benzene over a long period of time, you're going to die, and they wouldn't even know, because leukemia reduces the capability of the body to have resistance. Yeah, so it's for them, it's too late. And we're talking of a lot. Hundreds, if not thousands of children would have died over the years, not to mention the adults who would have been poisoned by the toxicity of the water, the toxicity of the food, toxicity of the atmosphere. But definitely, we thank God it has started. But you know what's even more significant? It's the voice of the people of Nigeria finally being responded to by those who are put in government to be their servants, you know, the civil servants. So the voices of the people of Nigeria, after all these years, the ballot is finally working. You know, the bullet took over from the ballot a long time ago, and now the ballot is working, the voices of the people is being heard, and the government are responding. We are so excited about this.
Yeah, it looks like a dehumanizing situation in Ogoniland, but now that the cleanup has started, how long is it supposed to take?
In some areas, it will never be possible to bring it back to any kind of decent condition again, because when the hydrocarbon catches fire and it burns for a long time, it creates almost like a concrete-like nature out of the mud. So some areas, a few areas are totally lost. Other areas, the hydrocarbon has seeped so deeply, areas that were meant to have been cleaned up, areas where large amounts of funds had been allocated for the cleanup. The cleanup was just done cosmetically. And the hydrocarbon continued to seep right down. In some places, it's 5 meters deep. And believe you me, to clean up an area that is poisoned and polluted up to 5 meters is very difficult. So it'll take 30 years in some areas. Other areas, they might be able to pull it off a little bit quicker. But the main thing is that there has to be continuity. It has to be a sustained effort. It cannot just be this particular government, this particular minister. It has to continue because it's a long, long process.
And that's what must take place within that period of time, because even after that, it will take a while before, you know, normalcy is restored to that area, before you know, things return to normal. But what happens to the people who live in Ogoniland? Because there are those who are still living there. It seems like, you know, a death sentence to almost live in that area.
Yeah, it definitely is, particularly to the children. And this is what, you know, it's a bit difficult to get one's head around this reality, that large percentage of the children in that area have had a death sentence passed on them. They will be falling sick for many years to come. Once leukemia has gone into your bone marrow and the capability of your body to generate healthy white and red blood corpuscles is compromised, the child becomes sick and dies off. What happens to the people? There is some good rays of hope, because, you know, from what we're seeing, the body language of this particular Minister of Environment is so positive. She is so on top of the game, and she's going somewhere where the UN have already paid a lot of attention to. She is from the UN school anyway, so there's a lot of encouragement there, and there's certain things that you can fast track. You know, and I'm believing that some of the big corporates and some of the oil companies who have been responsible for this will help with this fast tracking, and that is, you know, putting solarized boreholes deep into the sub-aquifer levels and bringing out clean water. Once you're giving the people clean water, then you can have a sort of devised sort of agricultural scenario where you can use hydroponics. There are ways of making their life a little bit more bearable pretty quickly if they can just give them the clean water.
Thank you so much, Mr. Majokodomi, for joining us on the News at 10. We turn now to corruption, policy inconsistency and a lack of trust, which constitute stumbling blocks to several government policies aimed at economic diversification. That's a position of the Institute of Directors in Nigeria, who says that investors have been discouraged by such policy inconsistencies. The directors made this known at a conference in Abuja.
Captains of industries at a meeting to discuss alternatives to Nigeria's oil-driven economy. First, the president of the Institute of Directors charges participants on what should lead the discussions.
With the well-acknowledged crumbling oil prices, drop in foreign exchange earnings, retrenchment from white-collar jobs, increasing incidence of divestment by companies based in Nigeria to other attractive countries due to unfavorable business fortunes, the diversification of the Nigerian economy is unarguably one of the greatest issues on the front burner of our national discourse today.
The conference is expected to brainstorm on how Nigeria can diversify the economy by investing in petrochemicals, agriculture, solid minerals and manufacturing. Former head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, explains why the discussion at the gathering is apt at this moment.
I believe that the global fall in the prices of crude oil has taught us a lesson that a mono economy in contemporary times is an invitation to economic disaster. We must seriously reconsider national plans for development and be concerned about policies and pronouncements that promote doing business in Nigeria.
Meanwhile, other participants at the conference argue that policy inconsistency, corruption and selfish interests of a few individuals remain the bane of economic diversification policies in Nigeria.
We set up committees upon committees upon committees, and we discuss and discuss and discuss over the same matter. So what is the problem? We have a serious problem when it comes to implementation. We have a serious problem when it comes to trusting ourselves. We have a serious problem when it comes to corruption. We have a serious problem in determining what is good for ourselves.
There's so much personal interest in what we do in this our country. That is not helping us. Too much personal interest. We're listening to the president and how some few people sat down and start distributing billions of dollars. With that mindset, how will they develop? How can they look at the plans? It's just personal. So we need to reduce that. And I think Cole more or less summarize it. Let us all sit together and ask ourselves, is this how we're going to go? For the last 10 years, no new industry has come into this our country. Is that how we're going to take care of the population we are growing per day?
Crude oil, which has remained Nigeria's main source of revenue for years, has not only come under threat by unstable global crude oil prices, but vandalism in the Niger Delta has further made matters worse.
The Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Chief Audu Ogbe, says government has no plans to forcefully acquire any land for the proposed national grazing reserves in the country. Chief Ogbe, who made the clarification in reaction to concerns coming from the southern part of the country, explained that 55,000 hectares of land has already been volunteered by 11 northern state governments. Our correspondent, Omelogo Nadi, reports.
Grazing Reserve Council would have the power to take away your land from you anytime they want and pay you whatever they want as compensation. Your land, when taken, shall be assigned to herdsmen who shall use your land for grazing purposes. They shall bring cows to the land, and you shall lose the land permanently to those Fulani cattlemen.
This is an excerpt from a message going viral on the social networking sites, asking Nigerians from the south to rise up and reject the National Grazing Reserve Council bill currently before the National Assembly, from being passed into law. The fears that it is a strategic plan to seize people's lands and Islamize Nigeria. But the Minister of Agriculture says federal government has no plans to take anybody's land by force, as the aim is to end the conflict and not aggravate it.
We are sensitive enough and aware that there are sensitivities in the country and that we can't go and encroach on any community and seize their land. It will not happen. It is not the intention of government. It will be unfair if we allow that to happen. So nobody's land will be seized by force. I can assure you. I don't think the president himself will sign such a bill.
11 states have volunteered 5,000 hectares of land each for grazing reserve. These states are Plateau State, Jigawa, Gombe, Sokoto, Adamawa, Kaduna State, Kano, Katsina, Taraba and Niger states, and the FCT. But other aspects also require attention.
We intend to establish large hectareages of paddocks or grazing fields with highly improved tropical grasses and legumes. You can see the picture over there of different types of grasses, samples of which we already have, and the planting of which we hope to begin during this rainy season. We intend to provide irrigation for all year-round commercial fodder production to enhance the settlement of pastoralists. And we intend to spread the production of fodder across the length and breadth of Nigeria, north, south, east, or west.
When these grazing reserves are set up, the headsmen would be expected to operate under strict regulations. The minister says the ministry will work with federal lawmakers to fine-tune the bill and also make necessary input. Omelogo, Nadi Channel Television News.
When the News at 10 returns, OPEC retains output policy as Nigeria's Barkino becomes new Secretary General. We'll have more in business news. Please join us again.